Allie. Join me as I show you how to do peyote and netting in this crystal square earrings. These crystal quilted square earrings use 4mm bicones as well as delicas and 15-0s. If you need any of the supplies, look below the video in the description. There's links there to get back to our site, which has them all listed out in the quantities that you need. Gather up your materials on your bead on it board and let's get ready to get started. So to begin, we have 4 colors of our 4mm bicones, and I'm going darkest to lightest in this color combo, and Annabella picked this color combo out. The original color combo was a little bit more fiery, and I'm going to explain why I added 15-0s and how to get this a nicer patchwork design rather than looking a little bit squashed. We also have delicas here in the silver and 15-0s in that gunmetal color. The first thing we're going to do is we're doing a circular peyote pattern. So I want to pick up 1, 2, 3, and 4 of my delicas, and I'm dropping them down on a size 10 needle, working with size 8 white dragon thread. And I'm going to tie this into a knot. Right over left, left over right, making sure that your beads are not twisted in your knot, which sometimes can happen, especially with these little tiny beads. All right, so we are good to go now. What we're gonna do is add another delica in between each one of this original set. So I'm gonna pull that knot nice and tight, go through the next delica in line, right there, bring my needle out, and we're gonna add another one of our delicas between each one. So we're taking those 4 original delicas, basically separating them by putting another one of your delicas on. Now they'll sit between there, just pinched a little tiny bit as we go around and add in 1 bead. So here I'm adding another one of my delicas between beads 3 and 4 that we originally added. I add another delica. And then between beads 4 and number 1 from that original row, we're going to add another one of our delicas. At the same time, we're going to do what's called a step up. We're going to step up to create and start our next row of the circular peyote stitch by going through the first bead that we put on in round number 2. So we're putting on a bead, we're sewing through bead number 4 of that original row, and then we're also sewing through bead number 1 of the second pass around. We're going to give a nice tight pull, and that's going to create that little peyote stitch. So if we bring the camera in a little bit closer even still, you can see those 4 original beads kind of sit squared, and then our additional beads are going to sit on the corners there of each of the bead itself. From here we're going to go in and continue to increase. We are going to sew into the 4 beads, or those cornered pieces that we just added. When we do so, how we are going to do it is we are going to go in and we are going to sew through, adding in a 15-0 bead next to our delica bead. So the third pass around, what we're going to do is make up some space that we need by adding a 15-0 bead before our delica bead. 15-0 goes on, this delica goes on, and then I'm going into my next corner bead. So bead number 2 of row 2. Then I'm going to once again add a 15 and a delica through bead number 3 of row 2. And the reason that we're adding a delica or a 15 next to the delica is because there's more space than just one delica. As you do circular peyote stitch, your piece grows and grows and grows, so the space between the beads where you're adding from those peyote rows is going to increase in size. So you need to add extra beads between them. 15 delica goes on, and then once again, guess what? We're stepping up. Going through bead number 1 that we added as we connect beads number 4 and number 1 from that row 2. And then as we come out there, I want you to step up through the 15 and the 11-0 seed bead that your thread was originally coming out of. That completes our 3rd row of our peyote stitch. The first was our 4 beads, the second was 4 again, and the third was 115 along with 1 delica bead. You can see them right in there. The next thing we are going to do is add again. So as we add again and we get this center bigger, there's our 4, 4, delica, and 15, we're going to do the exact same thing again with the delica and 15 as we go around the corners one more time. So here we are coming out of the delica bead. Once again, 15 delica, and then go into the next corner, 15 delica. So you're adding the same beads. So rows number 1 and 2, you add your delica beads. Rows number 3 and 4, you add a 15 and a delica as you're working with them. Going around here, and that'll increase the center. Our next row, we get to start using some of our crystals as well too. Going around here, adding those in. One more pass here, adding in your crystal, or your 15 and your delica. Step up through your first 15 and delica, beads number 1 from, beads number 1 from your last row, and then at the same time, let's step up through the first 2 beads that we added on pass number 4 here. So you're stepping up through the 15 and through your 11-0 delica. This gets us ready then to add in our first of our crystals. The first of our crystals is going to be our darker crystal here. So we're going to add in a 4mm jet crystal that has a 15-0 on each side of it. So a 15-0 gets added, a 4mm crystal gets added, and then another 15-0. Once you have those 3 beads on your needle, go ahead over to the next corner and go through the next 15 delica combo. You will see until we get to our 6th row that the bicones will sit a little bit off to the side because they're not perfectly lined up there. So go around and put in your 15, your 4, and your 15, and then go through your next corner combo beads of 15 and delica. I have 2 on here. I'm going to repeat this 2 more times to get that nice netted peyote look to it, adding 4 complete crystals. As you finish up adding your last bicone here, what's going to happen is that you are going to see those bicones kind of pop up. Now we're going to switch up from the traditional circular peyote that we've been doing and almost do a netting. So what I want you to do actually this time is we're going to sew up through that first 15 and through the first black bicone. When you're through that bicone and when you have that area there open, we're going to connect to all the bicones. So when we connect to all the bicones, what we are going to do is get our next darkest color, which is that darker tanzanite color, 15, delica 15, delica 15, and through the next black seed bead. So a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 beads, going smallest to biggest, and then back down, and then over to the next black bicone and sew through. Continue that, catching on to all those corner bicones 3 more times. As you add in your last group of beads coming through that final black bicone, what you want to do is step up by going through the 15 and the delica and come out the crystal. It's time to add another grouping of crystals, and just like the last row, we're just catching on to all of the crystals, not any of the seed beads yet. Your pattern for the next one is going to be a 15 followed by 2 11-0 seed beads, followed by your lightest purple bead, followed by 2 11-0 seed beads, and 1 15. So as we come around this time, we're increasing by 1 delica bead. Go on over to the next tanzanite bead, sew through that bicone, and that gets your next section right there. You're going to see that light purple bead looks like it's sitting right on top of your black bead. Go ahead and do that 3 more times, and then we have 2 more passes to do to get our quilted earring squares. As you add your last bead here, you can see that I'm going through the last of that lighter purple bead, that tanzanite bead that we were connecting to, and I'm also stepping up through the 15-0, the 2 delicas, and then I'm going to get ready to come out through that first crystal that we just added on this go round. I'm also in this one going to go through the delica after the crystal. So as we go around and connect to these 4 crystals that we just added, we're also going to sew through the delica before and after that crystal. Our last pass here that we're adding is going to be 1 of our 15 seed beads, followed by 3 of our Montana blue crystals, followed by 1 more seed bead. Go over to the next corner and go through the delica, light amethyst, delica bead. Spin again, 15, 1, 2, 3 crystals through the 15 to the next corner through the delica, crystal, delica. You're going to continue this for all 4 corners here, adding a total of 12 of your 4mm bicones. And then we're going to get ready to add on our wire guard. Not only is this an earring that I'm making, but you can also make this into a component to link together as a show-stopping bracelet. It would be awesome to see these all connected on the corners and lined up like a patchwork bracelet. Might have to challenge people to do that, or I might even have to do that myself too. It's really cool. So you can see here now you've got that beautiful patchwork design of that quilted square. And what we're going to do is add a wire guard to the top. If you're unfamiliar with a wire guard, the wire guards work to hold your thread in place and to keep your thread from rubbing on the ear wires. So much like this gold one here, we're going to connect it to the ear wire. They have 2 little sides in them that are going to curve around a piece of metal, and basically the ends of it have the metal bent in towards one another. You can see it almost looks like a tube, and then it has a U channel. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up a 15 seed bead. We're going to pick up our wire guard here, and I'm just going to open it a tiny little bit, being very gentle in it. I'm going to go in with my plier here and my fingernail. You can use 2 pliers if you need to, and just stretch it open just the tiniest little bit. Sometimes I pinch it closed. In this case, I'm keeping it open. Oops, sorry, before going through there, you want to get to the corner through that last bead, and then add that 15. Sorry about that. Add your wire guard, going in through that first tube on the side, taking the thread around the wire guard so it sits in that little U channel, adding another 15 to balance on the opposite side, and then sew back through that same 4mm bead that your thread is currently coming out of. What that does is rounds the thread so it'll sit directly over that bicone and your earring will hang the nicest. From here again, we are going to reinforce, doing those same steps but not adding any beads, just sewing through the beads that are already there. Adding a 15, going up and around, down and out here of your piece. Once you're down through the wire guard a second time, go ahead and take your needle and thread through that 15 as well. And now we're going to bring our needle and thread towards the center of the design, and we are going to knot off our thread end. So I'm taking my thread and weaving it back through. Now, this is really great to learn no matter what your project is doing, or what you're doing rather for your project. Where do you want to tie your knot and where do you want to get rid of it? So because this earring has a really deep silver center, I can tie the knot there and you really won't see it. Just like the example piece here, because the knot hides out right there in the silver. So for this one, I'm going to take my needle and thread, go back through the next bicone and 15, not connect to my sample, and then we're going to sew through the beads that are already there, basically going through the netting and just stepping down, making sure your needle and thread follow the same thread path that it would have to increase. So I'm going through here. When I come out that bicone, I know it went down here, going down towards that center, and then in towards the center of the piece as well. As we go in towards the center of the piece, you can see that I'm downgrading through that original circular peyote as well as through the netting. Going down in towards the center, and then once I get to the center, I'm going to bring my needle and thread to the same side as my starter thread through that first original delica, and then bring it towards the back of the project. See where that thread end is that you need to tie onto, and sew your needle and thread up to that point. through your original. Right here is that original needle and thread. I'm going to take those two thread ends, tie them together, and then grab my thread burner and burn it down. The thread burner is useful because what will happen is it will create a little balled up area after the knot. That will make the knot harder to come out or slip out of place. Grab your thread burner, burn that thread end down, burn this one down here. If I had a project where you could really see the knot and it was going to be obvious, what we would do is weave the thread back in to the project rather than having both thread ends end at one spot. Burn that down, and then we're going to grab our ear wires. So how do you put on ear wires to your wire guards, or how do you work with ear wires? You want to bend the ear wire to the side rather than pulling it back. What that does is it keeps its original teardrop or rounded shape. You slide on your wire guard for a nice professional look, and then you pinch that wire guard, or you pinch that ear wire closed by moving it back into its original shape. That then finishes up your beautiful crystal quilted square earrings. You can make these in so many different varieties and so many different colors, and it's going to be great to see everybody's color combos in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. Thanks so much, Potomac Beaders, for watching this beautiful crystal quilted earring. It is really fun to see it as an earring, but I can't wait to see if anyone does it as a bracelet or necklace. Again, make sure to share your pictures in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. Need any materials to complete it or to make more pairs? Go ahead and look below the video in the description. We have a link there to our site which lists the exact supplies and links to other options as well. If you haven't yet, hit that little subscribe button so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.